Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing today? Let's sit up straight and actually look a little bit more, regal. I don't even know. Like look more official, in your position as you're as you're sitting here. Hey, everybody, welcome back to today's live stream. We are getting going today. How are you all doing on this beautiful Sunday? It's actually not that beautiful. It's kind of it's a little gloomy outside actually. But how you doing, Nickies? Welcome to the chat. Beargon Productions. How are you today? And everybody else who is joining the live stream now and later. The image quality is amazing. Oh, thanks, man. Finally got the camera up, and it's gonna be up until it's not up, and at some point it's gonna crash during the stream. Because I don't know, the charging thing, it just slowly trickles away, and then eventually it goes out, and it is what it is. But can you guys hear me? Yes, you can. Awesome. Fantastic. I want to give a special thanks to our wonderful Patreon subscribers here. If you guys are part of the Patreon, you guys get access to all the project files that we create on the live streams here. Actually, many of the shots, I updated the reel on the thing. Thank you, Nickies, for noticing that. I updated a lot of the shots to have a lot of the VFX that we've created on the live streams over the last couple of years. That's finally has a lot more updated stuff that's going on, but all that link is in the description, of course, below. Today begins kind of the opening for our wonderful Spooktober, October, guys. We're going to do some cool streams over the next month. Taking a break from the video game, and we're getting into doing some really cool stuff. So today, for instance, we're going to do a day for night type shot. We're going to make a spooky kind of like slasher film vibe thing. This actually happens quite often. You guys have no idea. The amount of times that I have gotten clients that have come up and been like, hey, we shot this during the day, but we want it to look like nighttime, and it's got to look scary, or it's got to look like nighttime or late afternoon or morning or something like that. But because of shooting schedules, they shoot when they're available. And that oftentimes is during the day, not when the lighting allows for it. Next stream, we'll get Connor to remake Lord of the Rings. The entire Lord of the Rings. We're remaking Lord of the Rings from scratch. It has been a little brighter. Oh, the lighting. Yes, I fixed some lighting stuff. I got a nice red light back there going on. But yeah, today we're doing day for night, guys. Day for night. Now, I'm not messing around with Comfy UI to create the normals. We're going to be using Switch Light today, which I already created all the extraction passes and everything. So we don't need to remake those. Switch Light right now, guys, by the way, is free. So get it while it's still free. I believe that it's going to start costing money in the next coming up versions of Switch Lite. And that's because they're rolling out Switch Lite 2.0 or something. It's like the whole new version. So right now, Switch Lite's free. I will show you guys kind of how I went about doing this shot. Let me actually first get my assets ready. I was working on some actual work right before stream started today, so forgive me if I'm just getting everything going here. But ideally, what we're going to be doing is breaking down the shot into multiple sections. I have a plate, and the plate is free on Action VFX. I'm just using this shot of this guy with a phone. You can do this same effect with anything. Like, it's just, all it takes is a piece of footage and a guy. And I've done so many day for night shots. You guys probably saw that in the opening. All the wonderful day for night shots that I've done. Let's see. I gotta click on that. Turn my head sideways because my phone's sideways right now. Let's see. We want source. We have our plate here. Yeah. I'm just going to grab the plate. I'm going to copy it into our folder. Okay. So this right here is kind of the plate that we have. I'm probably going to call this today's date for the name of the project. And then we will call this 010 for the first shot of the sequence, and BG1, because that's what we got going on here. Now, there's a few things that I like to do with this when we grab our plate. We're going to be inside of Nuke today, and I'm inside of Nuke Indie right now. You could be in Nuke X, you could be in anything. It doesn't really matter because we're making basically everything from scratch, okay? It's all accessible with inside of our software here. Any thoughts on the Nikon ZR? I don't even know. I don't even know what the Nikon ZR is. Do I have the Nikon ZR? I have something here. It's a camera, all right. It's a DSLR camera. I couldn't tell you which one it is. Looks like I'm showing even my light stand back here. If you look, that's my light that's shining up on the on the wall back there. Looks like I'm showing my entire office. Goodness gracious. Well, let's get into it, okay, guys? We're going to be inside of Nuke today, and I'm going to grab our plate and we're going to drag it in. So we're going to start working on this shot here. Let's make sure that's live. Great. And let's go ahead and drag this guy in and set up our project settings. So oftentimes, as I said, I can't tell you how many times I work on a movie and, you know, they get into it and they're like, okay, you need to, why can I not view this? What is going on here? Hello? I'm going to restart Nuke. Restarting Nuke already, everybody. I wasn't able to use my keyboard for some reason. The numbers weren't working. That's working. Cool. Awesome. I'm so glad that's working. All right, let's downsize that for right now. And then we will grab our plate. Please. There we go. Okay, first of all, I'm going to set this to view it in 709 because it's technically what we're viewing it as on our screen. And then, okay, so I can't tell you how many times I get into a film and the director, the editors, they come in and they go, all right, this needs to look like it's nighttime. And you get this piece of crap here. And you're like, okay, well, you shot it midday. There's direct sunlight on the actor. And, you know, like this car over here is like completely blown out. What am I supposed to do with that? And it's like, that's all very fair questions, but they don't ever, you know, give you good answers. They just go, well, hit the VFX button. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to fix the VFX button, or we're going to hit the VFX button because that's our job. So let me open up chat here and we're going to get started. So this is our plate here. And what we're going to basically be doing is we have to think about this from kind of like a cinematography perspective. There's a few things that we're going to want to do. First of all, we want to bring everything down. So like, even if we just dropped in like an exposure node to our comp here, we could drop an exposure node in and then just literally bring everything down and kind of see what details we have left. So really, we actually aren't losing detail in the car or any of that stuff. You said haven't been in Nuke in a long time, to be fair. I haven't rendered anything in ages anyways. It's been stuck in setup stage. Oh, okay. Well, today we're getting back into it. Open up your Nuke, brush off your hands, and let's get started. You know what I'm saying? The depth of field, the BG looks fake. You're talking about what depth of field? On here? Well, I guess there is quite a bit of depth of field for how daytime the shot is. Usually when things are very bright, you lose your depth of field pretty quickly. At least on like DSLR cameras. I believe they shot all this stuff on red, by the way. So anyways, and probably with ND filters and things like that as well. What we're going to do is we're going to darken this. Now, I like to remove all light entirely from our shot and then kind of reintroduce it back. There's a few things that I might want to end up doing. First of all, if we look at our shot here, we're going to see how much grain there really is inside of our shot. There's not a lot of grain, to be completely honest. Usually you want to denoise your plate first. It's just the it's one of those things where we're going to want to denoise it and then reintroduce the grain later. However, we're not going to want to reintroduce this grain. We're probably going to want to reintroduce grain from like a plate that is shot at night, because technically your sensor would be recording more grain than during a daylight shot. It just has to do with how your sensor is capturing in the dark areas. So for us anyways, we're probably fine with just crushing everything out and then creating our own grain later. Normally, I would recommend on all VFX shots to degrain it first and then later use something like DOS grain inside of Nuke to basically bring it back. So I'm going to, let's go ahead and save our comp real quick. Okay, I need to go to my live streams folder and today's date. Beautiful thing. I'm going to put under our comps, and then let's call this whatever this is. Whoopsies. 010 and then version 1. Now, also, I'm going to go to my tool sets up here. We're just going to add in a default tool set. And this is going to be my default Nuke setup here. Nothing crazy, probably just taking out the exposure real quick and then dropping our plate at the very top here. And then of course our exposure here, which is where most of our comp work's going to go. So I'm going to just like kind of cleanly set everything up here. Now what this is doing is it's actually going to take our degrained version of our plate here and then another one that's using this DOS grain method. Probably disable that for right now. We don't need it. I also, this is actually an old thing. We want solid alpha. So what we're probably going to do, this is a very old comp here, but we're going to use an expression and then set that alpha to 1 inside of our solid alpha. This is just so that you fix any kind of like merges that you had in the past. What are my thoughts on Christoph Waltz saying CGI is for losers? Okay, pause. Waltz is not a loser. I'll answer this because I actually think this is, I did share that to my Discord and I found out later the full story. There is a little bit behind it. Now, do I think it's a poorly timed, bad thing to say? Yes. I do think that like maybe it is something that he slightly believes. I don't know. But if you actually watch the interview, it's said more in a joking manner. And I honestly think for the film, it's a film directed by Guillermo del Toro. And Guillermo del Toro is very, very, very famous for shooting things practically with like animatronics and costumes and like all practical effects. And then enhancing with visual effects afterwards. It's what he's really, really famous for. In fact, actually, his whole house is filled with like all of the props and everything that he has. So as far as like in the context of where this line was said, Christoph Waltz is an actor in this new movie called Frankenstein, directed by Guillermo del Toro. And Christoph Waltz is sitting next to Guillermo del Toro. And then someone asked the question, what are your thoughts about CGI? And Christoph Waltz says CGI is for losers. Now, it's probably an inside joke between him and Guillermo del Toro, where Guillermo del Toro's, you know, probably like, hey, I always like to try to do things practically first before we do CGI. And so it's a joke that CGI is for losers for people who don't try to do practical first. I don't think it's something that I think it's like a soundbite that can be very easily taken out of context and then thrown out into the world. And I think that's what exactly happened here. I think Christoph Waltz was probably just joking that like, oh, if you just do CGI and don't try to do practical as well, then you're just a loser for trying to do it the cheap way. And so I'm not really defending him because I don't think it should have been said in a public manner, especially right now with how people feel about CGI, and also CGI being kind of like elevated to like, or not elevated, but like compared directly with AI. I think that it can be one of those things that is a very hot topic right now, and like has a lot of what we say there's a lot of contextual bias against it or for it. So all that to say, I would say for us, we know the difference between AI, CGI, and visual effects. Like CGI is a visual effects, but visual effects is not CGI. Whereas everybody thinks CGI just means everything. And then now they also think AI and CGI are the same thing. So that's the general public. And so when someone like Christoph Waltz says this, he might not necessarily know himself everything that CGI is or visual effects are. So in his situation, I'm just saying, like, try to have some understanding of like, hey, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. And maybe it's an inside joke. I think that it's mostly an inside joke, especially in the situation of Guillermo del Toro sitting directly next to him. And then if you continue to watch that clip, Guillermo del Toro goes, well, I think that, you know, and then he goes on to say exactly what I just said, which was that he likes to use practical effects where possible and then enhancing it with CGI. So that's my 2 cents on the matter, is that there is a kind of like I think you need to know the context behind that situation. I have friends that got very angry very quickly on that, and that said they were going to boycott the movie, and that's fine. You can, that's your freedom to do so. I just think though that I kind of can see it from the perspective of there is, I think I understand why it was said. It's not that Christoph Waltz actually believes that CGI is for losers. I think it was a joke on the manner of like, we want to cancel Waltz. I don't know, man. I like Christoph Waltz also. I mean, he's such a fantastic actor, but it does make me sad when actors aren't very aware of what CGI is. And you got to think about it from an actor's perspective. They think that AI is going to replace them. And so if they think that AI and CGI are the same thing, then they're definitely against CGI. But that's not AI. Probably more than likely, I can't say anything, but I don't think AI is going to replace all the creatives in a field. I certainly don't think it's going to replace actors. I just think that it'll change how we shoot things or whatever. So all that to say, I think that's my 2 cents on it. There's my hot take on the situation. Back to doing visual effects. So I'm going to add a grade note in here. So another thing to notice here is that, well, it better not replace animation though. Well, AI better not replace animation. So actually, okay, looks like we are going to sit on this topic for a moment. I don't disagree. I hope it doesn't replace animation. Though I personally believe that the way AI is going is that animation is the thing that it will directly replace. But I don't think it'll replace animation necessarily in its entirety. I think it's more like it will replace the rendering and look dev of animation. We see this in history. Like we can only relay what we know has happened in the past and how it's changed things. And we've seen analog animation, and then we've seen digital animation, and they're very different methods of animation. There is still analog animation that's done to today, although it's far less. And there's digital animation, which is far, far more. And I think AI animation will be even more. Like it'll be even more. And and that might mean that digital animation will go down. But I take the trash out. Take the AI trash out. But I think I think with it, I think what we'll see is more than likely the issues with AI right now is the input. Right now, the input of AI is text, and sometimes now images, and then they're getting into video. And so what that means is that the input value that they're inserting inside of the AI is slowly getting more accurate to what the user wants. But when you really think about it, that means that animation still has to exist. So you're probably going to be doing previs, like grayscale animation, or like even rough colors of animation on like a previs, and then feeding that into an AI and then going, hey, make this visually appealing like a Pixar film or whatever. Maybe you feed it reference images as well, or like you do stills and then you feed that into the AI. I think that's definitely how AI is going to go. Is it's more like a render engine, if you will, for the future. It won't be a full end all, like I'm going to sit at a computer and go, hey, make a film about a kid who plays baseball. Like it's not going to do that. It's going to be more like, oh, I want to make a film about a kid who plays baseball. And then sure, you can maybe use AI to write the script for you, but I don't think that's even going to be very good. So like, I think that the films that will stand out will be the ones that are more human controlled. And that just means that it's like inserting previs, if you will. And then that previs kind of becomes a final product. I don't know. I think that's kind of how I see it. People VFX compete against each other, where in reality, they generally work pretty close with each other. That is true. Kind of frustrating how one random person just type in text and the uploads on YouTube. Hey, I made this animation. That is true also. Okay. All right. Let's get to this. So I'm going to drop a grade note in. Now, when we lower the exposure, the general warmth that we have here of this image is kind of an issue. Because it was shot during the day, the lighting is very orangey orange, and we kind of want to make everything darker. So right now, what we're really grading is kind of like the background, and we want this background to be kind of bluer, because in nighttime, the warmth kind of goes away. So we're going to suck the warmth out, really. And we can do that a few different ways. I usually like to go into the white point here and then kind of like move it towards that warmer area. And you can kind of see the entirety of the background getting a little bluer. And we're going to try to find an area that we're pretty happy with. I like to, first of all, make it pretty blue. And then I like to add in a saturation and then desat it. I don't like too blue of things, but what we're trying to do is really make this background here a little bit darker. But honestly, AI is really a long way before it actually takes over animation. I mean, it's better being used as a tool than a replacement. That is true. Back in my day, when someone wanted to make a fake trailer for a made-up sequel, they would compile different shots from different movies, but now it's AI slop as far as the eye can see. That is true. That is very true. So I'm going to take this. Maybe it's a little too blue. I'm going to go this direction. I am actually quite a bit happier with the way that looks. And then let's desat that a little bit more. And then we're going to change this to stops of exposure. And then let's bring this down a tiny bit as well. Okay, gotcha. Now, our original plate is this, and then this is kind of our BG color grade that we want to have. Our BG color grade is really just for the background. We might want this car to be even darker. Right now it's really blown out, and it's because the metallic surface of this has the sun hitting it. And if we go to this, you can actually see how bright it is in our RGB scope values here. I think that it's actually not even as bright as it really is. This is just a 709 output on Action VFX. I'm fairly certain this is way brighter if you were to look at the actual raw footage, but since we're not viewing that, it's not that big of an issue. Though it did retain the value, so I am thinking that it is somewhat this bright. Like, look at that, dude. That's like 8. That's insane. I've seen some stuff though that was like 32. You know, it's really overexposed. It's not even overexposed. It's a bright surface and the sunlight's directly on it. So if we wanted to, we could probably specifically drop in another exposure node or something like that. Let's just change this to stops and then bring that even further down. And then I'm going to drop in a roto now. Now, there's a couple things that we kind of needed to do before we got started, and that's just setting up the frame rate and then also setting up what the input resolution is, which is 2K DCP. So I'm going to take this mask now, and then we're going to specifically mask out this car. So, whoopsies, probably needed to match that a little closer. Luckily, we don't actually have a camera track on this, so it's a little bit up to our discretion. Or not discretion, but we don't have a camera track, so we just have to do this once, and then it doesn't have to be tracked on. We just have to get it to work on the surface here. We got a little bit of blending there that's going to happen. Don't know how that happened in the footage. Is that like a divot in the concrete? I think it is. And there we go. So there's our car. I'm going to set that to RGBA. And here we go. So now we're going to be darkening out that car. I'm probably just going to throw a blur node in here and then just feather that a bit. And it's okay. That's a little more of a silhouette. Probably fix this top edge a little bit. Yeah, color matching is quite a bit fun. I like actually a little bit of edge there. It's just satisfying when it works. Absolutely. Agreed. Okay, great. So now we've got this darker kind of background there. I'm actually going to go to Action VFX now. And the other thing is we are doing this for a horror movie, okay? That's the idea. So I want some atmosphere that's going to make it feel very moody and scary. And what better place to do that than Action VFX assets? They've got so many good atmospheric assets. Whoopsies. Zoomed out. I was trying to scroll down up here. I'm going to find myself a good Action VFX asset. I have a full library of these guys. And I really think we're just going to try to find something that kind of has some nice movement in it. Ooh, that's pretty good. I like that. So let's download this guy here. So we'll go 2K downloads are totally fine. I mean, our shot is really only 2K anyways. So we're going to go to, whoopsies, that's the music folder. And let's go ahead and put this under our assets. We'll go ahead and download that. Now, it's okay. We don't need a roto over a guy yet. We're kind of moving from back to front here. So all I need to do now is go ahead and import our footage. So let's go here. We're going to go back to our assets folder. And then inside of assets, you're going to see this fog lingering. Let's go ahead and import that. And make sure that is plugged. Whoopsies. And then we'll just grab this guy and move him over here. Awesome. Let's go ahead and tag, because I'm using my own kind of like ACES setup here. I'm going to tag that correctly. Now here's our atmosphere. And we're going to kind of drop a transform node in. Now this is already 2K DCP, so we don't have to reformat it or anything like that. But what I do want to do maybe is let's actually keep the transform there. Let's add a merge node in, and then let's go ahead and also add another roto node. And just by swapping the merge inputs here for this to be A, I'm going to now go in and we're just going to roto this bottom edge. Well, realistically, what we want to do is we kind of want to follow some kind of path here. So let's do that. And we can't really see there, but we're going to do this. Okay, so I'll go all the way to the outside of that. And then for right now, actually, let's do it this way. We're going to make everything a mask. So let's go ahead and pre-multiply this and then change this merge input here to mask. And then that's going to give us kind of just this area. All right. So let's go ahead and blur that. We're going to use quite a bit of blur. A little bit more than that. Beautiful. And then I might even a little bit higher. There we go. Fantastic. Now for future, I'll probably just end up deleting this keyframe here just in case I want to make any changes again. Separately from this guy, let's I don't know the proper way to, let's just do it this way. We're going to do a stencil. So go in, another roto node. And again, we're just going to go all the way over to our image here. Let's see, does he move? I think not really. So I guess that's the best area to do it at. We're going to zoom in on the background here. And just going to kind of stencil out our backdrop of this fountain, because we don't want the atmosphere going in front of this section. And if we do have atmosphere going in front of this section, we'll want it to be a different scale and in a different movement. This is all splashing water, so we could probably avoid too much of this section, but I think for the most part that should work. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's pre-multiply this, and we'll go ahead and throw a little bit of a blur on it. How are you doing, Hasselhoff? You forgot the ping in Discord? Oh yeah, I keep forgetting to do that. I feel like I've forgotten to do that a couple weeks now. That's why you got to have your channel notifications on, everybody, on YouTube. Make sure to turn the bell notifications on, and then that way you don't miss a live stream. or I just remember to post inside of the announcement section. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. But I think this now will work in general for our kind of exposure here. I'm going to add a merge node in, and we'll just drop it in. It's not going to look right because it's just kind of the wrong color. It's kind of the wrong everything, but we're going to fix all of that. So we're just going to do this right now. You're doing well. Awesome. I've been way too busy. I currently have 2 jobs I'm doing at work at the same time, and I've been working like 14-hour days. It's been pretty fantastic. You can't complain, because the thing is that when you don't have work, there's no work. But then when you do have work, you kind of have to do it. And like, that's the moment that you just have to sit down, grind it out, and do it. And right now is the work time. So it happens, once a year, I feel like. So here we are. Okay, I'm going to change the gain of this, and we're just going to darken everything down, I guess. I also kind of want to maybe color grade this to be, kind of the general blue atmospheric vibe that we've got going on here. I also want to maybe multiply this by a higher number just to lift up the gray kind of atmosphere that we have. And what you're going to see is this section here is the brightest. What we probably need to do is darken that area and kind of like lower out the contrast between everything. I suppose we could do this a few different ways, but I'm going to do it this way because this is the way I like to do it. I'm going to kind of just like manually select this section over here where the light is a little brighter. And we're just going to mask this section out on our original asset. And I'm going to take a roto and then just blur that. And if we take this gain now, we could like kind of lower it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to match the kind of grayscale of everything to each other. Probably need a little bit less of that. There we go. That's a little cleaner. It's going to get some dark edges in there, but that's kind of like lowering the contrast without lowering the contrast, because we don't want the contrast to get lowered over here. Really, it's kind of just the highlights that we want to get rid of in that section. Do you ever consider any models that extract the alpha and the normal out of the footage? I'm curious what you prefer and if you know any good models for those tasks. So extract the alpha and normals out of the footage. Well, actually, that's what we're going to be talking about today. I've been using Switchlight quite a bit, and Switchlight is free right now. I do think in the next few months they're going to be rolling out their paid version, but I've been using Switchlight since they got announced. I actually met Beeble back when they first launched the software as not even a video software. I knew someone who introduced me to him back at NAB like 3 years ago. And at that time, he had this code that would take a single image, just an image, and create the normals in alpha from it. It wouldn't do video yet, but the plan was to do video. So I've been using Switchlight for a while. I really do like Switchlight. But there's like certain tools that you can't really justify in your head paying for. And this is just like one of those ones that like I use a decent amount of times, but it's like Keen Tools. I don't ever pay for Keen Tools. I don't ever want Keen Tools because it's like if I could buy it once and own it perpetually, then I would. But to pay monthly for it, I just don't see myself doing that. However, Comfy UI is coming out with some new stuff, and that's pretty cool. Okay, first of all, before this grade comes out, what we're also going to want to do, and we might want to do this before all of this. So let's actually delete this transform node. And then I'm going to just use a keyer. And what we're doing here really is just exporting the alpha of our smoke. We just want the alpha of our smoke, maybe a little bit more opaqueness in certain areas. And then that's all going to get merged down to this section here. And then this is going to create our new alpha of our image that we're basically going to be dropping in. Yeah, so this is our, whoops, we don't want to be viewing alpha. This is our image, and then we're going to be dropping in our atmosphere. I think we went a little too dark on this, guys. I might multiply this to be a little bit higher. Either that, or we open up this guy, and then we can lift his values. Probably do that, and then just get kind of like that spooky. Again, we're going spooky today, guys, so get that little bit spookier, bluish, light blue kind of atmosphere there that's going on. Next up, it's kind of important. Our atmosphere right now, let's go to input and even see if it's playing at this frame. It is, but it's probably a little too slow. Yep, it's a little too slow. So I'm going to add in an O flow now, all the way up here at the very top. And then this O flow, we're going to just make this go way faster because we want it to feel very scary and very like, ooh, you know, like 80s horror vibe. So I'm just going to time offset this now by 1,000. Let's try that out. And let's just see what that looks like. It's definitely moving a lot quicker. And even 5 is not like fast enough. Probably should do it by 10, but let's just see how that looks. Oh no, actually 5 might be perfect. It feels very, ooh, that's good. Okay, great. I do think it would be cool. So anyways, this smoke here, I might want, do we want it in front of this car? No, I don't think we do. So under our stencil here, let's actually merge. We're gonna just merge another element, and that's going to be the car. So let's do that. So now that's going to work, but now we have a little bit of control over how much we want. I think we want it to, ooh, maybe not. Maybe not. We do not want that. We do not want that. This right here. Let's blur this a little more. Yeah, that works for me. And then here, this merge node where we're merging the whole smoke over, we'll make it a little more subtle. Okay. Great. Now, there's a few things that we're going to want to consider when relighting our actor here. Now, we have to bring our actor back in, make it a ghost car. Yeah. When we bring our actor back in, we're going to need to relight him. Now, we already have kind of like a bit of a strong light kind of going on here. One of the interesting things that the switch light functionality does is not only does it remove the alpha as well as create the normals, but it also generates kind of like a albedo version of the actor where they're not lit whatsoever. I'm going to actually have to copy some of our materials that I created before. I'm going to just create these under elements. Let's go to material, and then we'll go to, what is that? Let's do this guy, and then let's copy all of this. I did make all these for like a tutorial a long time ago that I never made this tutorial, so I'm just copying. I don't want to have to recreate all the switch light stuff today, so I'm just copying the assets. But essentially this was all generated using switch light, And it's very simple. Switch light's very simple. I don't feel like I need to make a tutorial on it. You go in, you select your EXRs, and then you basically say, hey, create material extraction, and then boom, it's done. I think Comfy UI, I want to experiment with that a little bit more. There are some cool models out there that allow you to do all of this stuff in more of a manual sense. And I'd like to figure that out because I've been doing a lot of material extraction work lately. And and I feel like increasingly more so. So, I can totally see this being a future of pretty much every VFX shot. You know what it is? It's that when something becomes possible, all of a sudden everybody wants to do it all the time because they become lazy. And so then they start doing bad filmmaking. And I swear, it's like as soon as paintouts became easy, now everybody's needing paintouts all the time. All right, so this gives you several different extraction layers here. The important thing to know are a few of these. These are all kind of like 3D materials. They work really well if you import this inside of Blender, which we could do if we wanted to. In fact, actually, that's probably a better workflow because I find some limitations inside of doing this directly inside of Nuke. Though we're going to try some stuff today first. This is the way that I usually do it, especially for simple relighting, things like this. We're going to want this albedo pass to be dragged in. We're probably also going to want to have we don't really need the key, but let's grab it anyways. Let's do normals. Let's do occlusion and roughness. We don't need specularity. So inside of our new comp, we're basically going to have all of these different material assets here that we're going to be using for different purposes. Now, again, the original plate looked like this, and that should actually look exactly like the key here. Although actually, funny enough, I just noticed that it blows the car out inside of this key layer. But the key layer does have an alpha extract, which is really good. Like, it did a really good job. Now, granted, this is just, a very simple shot of a dude in front of a camera. So if you're getting like really blurry, shaky, vibes going on, then that's going to be a little different than, this shot here where the camera is literally not moving and the actor's just standing there. But of course, it also generated what my favorite part is the albedo pass. And what this is like a non-lit version of the shot, which, look at the difference here, guys. So you get this like light kind of going on the neck here. Now everything's flat. Now, wow, this is going to be awesome because what we can now do is we can use this for relighting someone without lighting that's already baked into our shot. And so if we want to light someone from underneath, or if we want to light them from behind, but originally they were shot from the front, or whatever, we now have complete control over that inside of our comp here. And then it gives us a normals pass, which this is pretty good. I feel like it's not as good as it could be, and I can't wait till one day it's as good as it could be. But it's okay. The occlusion pass, which is kind of like reintroducing how the object has occlusion on itself. It's a little hard to see right now, but essentially it's like all of the areas around the nose and like the ears and stuff like that where like lighting occlusion is kind of naturally happening. This is useful because the albedo pass, obviously, that we have doesn't have any of that stuff really in it. It's got a little bit, but not as much as it should. So we can multiply that back in there to create kind of like the detail and the visceralness that we otherwise would be losing. And then we have our roughness here. And this is supposedly, again, this is a little smooth for my liking. I wish it had more of like the skin texture and things like that, but it'll work for us for the most part. Like, it'll kind of like get us mostly there, and this will work better than not having it, honestly. And that's where we are at with our lives. We only can use what we got. Dream tools. Yeah. So, okay. So how do we use all of this stuff? Well, first of all, we need to relight our albedo to live with inside of the world that we want to have it. And this means that we're probably going to be doing an exposure to bring it down, but then we need to relight that itself. So here's what I want to do. First of which, we're going to take this normals pass and we need to create an extraction of specifically a view or a orientation that a light might be hitting it at. The way normals work is, if you think about it from a perspective of like a cube, is that the top will be a certain color, the bottom will be a certain color, the left, right, and all that stuff from the camera's perspective will all be, or the world space perspective will be different colors. So if you notice here, a lot of the angles are like this right here, which is kind of like facing this direction. It's hard to like use your cursor in like 2D, but like is the same as the head here. The bottom of the arm here, for instance, is the same shade as the bottom of the hand, which is the same shade as the bottom of the neck, which is the same shade as the bottom of this armpit here. And that's because that is a direction in which the normals live with inside of your world. Normal X, Y, Z. Exactly. So what we need to do is basically tell Nuke how to relight that stuff inside of Nuke, because relighting is one of those things that requires some mathematics. And so in order for us to do that, we're going to create a constant to basically compare the values that we want, create ourselves a matte layer, and then use that matte layer to be able to grade our object accordingly. So let's go ahead and do that. So first of all, I'm going to take all of these guys here, and we're just going to move them out of the way. We're only dealing with our normals that we have here, as well as a constant. So I'm going to create a constant, and it's got to be the same exact resolution as the normals that you're comparing it against, which these are. So we're totally cool. Now, constants are pretty cool because they're just basically a solid color that we're going to be using to kind of reference certain areas. Theoretically, in this particular situation, I mean, it's actually not that crazy. You could use a cursor here and then select the color that you want. And then this color, all you really need, honestly, this is like really all you need, is a difference between this and then the normals that we're going to be generating here. And then if you go ahead and view that, what you're going to get is kind of like an alpha of a specific section. Now that's pretty straightforward, and like you can literally just use the constant color picker in order to do that. Though we're going to create a little bit more robust of a system. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to show you how to do this in a setup where you can use it for everything. Like, hey, you know, this object, we're going to want to relight it from this area. This object, we're going to relight it from this area. This constant method, by doing it this way, doesn't really work in that regards, because all it's doing is just selecting a specific color and then allowing you to, you know, do that. So we're going to create ourselves a mathematics function that's basically going to generate this color value that we've got here in comparison to the normals. And then we're going to do a whole setup. Why not shuffle? Well, then we would be shuffling. That creates your alpha shuffle. But in this particular case, I want to show you guys kind of like the workflow in order to create a custom node setup. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and delete this. I'm just going to re-add a new constant here. This is a fresh, brand new constant with the exact same resolution, of course, that we need. And then we're going to right click anywhere inside of here, and then we're going to hit manage user knobs. This is going to actually allow us to create our own user knobs in order to customize kind of like our workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few different ones. We're going to create a floating point slider here, and I'm just going to call this equator. This is going to be basically the equator axis of your constant or your normals or your 3D object. And we're going to create a label called equator. Okay, so we're just going to say label equator, and then the name is equator. And then the value of this is going to be a 0 to 360. Okay, so really what you're thinking about is that it's the value of going all the way around an object, basically from top view. If the camera was all the way over it, you're just going to be going all the way around. So from 0 to 360. We're going to go ahead and add another floating point slider here, and then we're just going to call this height. Okay, again, height probably make this caps here. Doesn't really matter. You know, it's just a way for us to reference this later. And now this time, if you really think about it, is that the camera sitting plane would be 0. And then if you're at the very bottom of it, that would be negative 90 degrees. And then we need to go all the way to the top of it, which is positive 90 degrees. So we're going to do negative 90 all the way to 90. So now you got those two values there. Great. Now the only other thing that we really need to reference is the color of our constant that we already have. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to do click pick here. We're going to pick from our current constant, and you see color here. We just now need to reference that color constant that we already have. Fantastic. That's basically all we need. So now we hit done. Now this allows us to change the values of our equator. This allows us to change the values of our height. And then if you hover over it, you can see that it's height and equator. Probably actually should, let's just make everything lowercase. That way I'm not referencing the wrong stuff here. So equator. I did misspell equator, so that's fun. Call that height. Fantastic. But now, so we've got ourselves equator and our height. And then we're going to go ahead and adjust our color now. So our color right now is all stagnant. What we need to do is we actually need to, you got to go now. Really interesting stuff here. See you whenever, I guess. Awesome, Paragon Productions. Thanks for watching. What we need now is our color to basically be referencing the values that we're inputting into our equator and height. Because obviously right now everything is just like kind of stationary here. So let's go over here and then we're going to do, first of all, if we hit 4 on that, actually I think, yeah, let's go ahead and hit 4. And then you're going to see all of these values here are set to 0. What we're going to do now is we're going to actually edit this as an expression. And then that's going to pop up our constant color that we have here of the RGBA values. Okay. So yeah, well, you can do that. I'm just showing you how to do it yourself. Now this takes just some fancy math. Essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the cosine with converting everything to radians. Okay. And then we're going to be adding the height value of this. And then we just need to multiply this against the cosine of the radians and then the height value again. Okay. So you're going to be taking the cosine and multiplying it against the cosine of, sorry, not the height, but the equator. So you're taking the cosine of the height against the cosine of the equator, and you're multiplying those two values against each other. And then now we're going to go to the green value here, and then this is going to be the sine. And then again, we're going to convert everything to radians of the height of our value. Okay, that's your green value. Now we're going to take the blue value here, and then we're essentially going to just be taking this, guys. Go ahead and just copy it, paste it. And we're going to swap this from cosine of the radians height. I think that's correct. And then this will be the sine of our equator. And then our alpha just needs to be set to 1. So now if we click OK, you'll notice that we can adjust that. Now I think I screwed up somewhere. Let's double check the cosine of the radians of the height times the cosine of the radians of the equator. Height. Did I messed up somewhere where I think I misspelled something. H-E-I-G-H-T. I think that's what I did. Sine, radians, height times sine, radians, equator. Oh, I always save. Actually, that's one of my favorite things about Nuke is that you don't have to save because it just remembers everything always. It remembers everything always, all the time, no matter what. me. I'm going to double check one of my other comps. I think I might have messed up something here. So what happens, guys, when you do things live? Yeah, I've never really lost work inside of Nuke because it always just like auto updates. So I never, or auto saves. So I've never. I know this is bad. Uh, don't trust the auto save feature, but I feel like I've never actually lost anything. Just double checking my work here. I feel like I did this right. Okay, that looks correct. Let's go back to manage user knobs here. And then we're just going to double check this. HEIGHT, HEIGHT. That looks correct. Negative 90 to 90. Fantastic. This isn't changing any of the values, which is making me think it's broken somehow. Fine. We're going to just use this one that I copied in here. But if you guys want, let's go to edit expression real quick. You can see I changed it from polar height to just height previously. But this is the equation there. And then, of course, that now we've got, okay, I don't know why the other thing was broken. And honestly, I don't care right now. We're going to just keep on moving on. Okay, great. So now we have this constant. And essentially what we need to do now is we're going to use a difference node. And then the difference node, we're going to be differentiating between the two here. Now, our normal should be plugged into the A input, and then the B input should be the constant here. And if we go view this, you can actually see nothing is happening. And it's because of what? Okay, there we go. So now if we go to the A of this and actually see exactly what's going on, we now need to invert everything here. And if you invert your selection, now if we go back over to our constant, we can actually select certain portions of our image that we might want to have. For instance, one thing I always think of whenever a DP is lighting a scene from for a film, they always say the moon is behind them. And it's a very funny thing. If you guys ever watch movies, the moon is always behind every actor. It doesn't matter if it's coverage from both angles, the camera's shooting. The moon is always behind everybody, and I don't know how that works, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Roger Deakins, I think, was the one that said it's like, it doesn't matter. The moon is always behind everyone because it looks better that way. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take Roger Deakins' advice and then relight our actors to all have the lighting coming from behind them. Right now, our main actor here, his lighting is it is kind of behind him, but it's more like frontal also. And what we want to do is just really have it be kind of like directly behind and getting some of that fringe lighting that we are missing here. Now, the reason why we do this is so that way we could take our albedo pass that we have here and we can lighten everything exactly how we want it to. Dark side of the moon. Yes, no, the moon's not out. So in every film ever, the moon's always out and the lighting is always done as such. Now, this is pretty great. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our albedo pass that we have here. We're going to take our normals pass that we have here. Now, we don't really care about what is visible here. If you guys want to get rid of that, we can use a shuffle node. And then what we can do is we could just, break the different values here and it's just black. But then if you go to the alpha channel, you can kind of see the lighting that we are doing here. So now if we go in and we add an exposure to our dude here, we kind of want to darken everything again. And again, we're doing something very similar to what we did with the background. Though this time what we're doing is we're kind of making it so that, it's our main actor. So we're going to be grading the shadows right now of what we are seeing. I kind of want to get rid of a lot of that warmth that we had there, because the warmth is from that daylight. So we're kind of like grading the shadows of what you would see at a nighttime kind of shoot. And then we're just kind of filling that in. Okay. So we're going to darken everything. Actually, this is probably okay, but let's darken it a little bit more. Okay. We're getting it really dark here. Even going to change this to stops. That way you can see how many stops of exposure we're bringing it down on. And now, again, we're going to be adding everything back. So just because it's super dark right now does not mean that's how we want it to be, because you need your movies to be visible to people. So we're going to add another exposure node in, but this time we're going to plug it into our wonderful normals output that we just created. And then this time, when we lighten everything up, we're creating kind of like this side lighting that we are now reintroducing into our shot, as if there was a moonlight coming from that angle back there. And this is going to give us a really, really nice kind of like, edge light that we can now light. And that looks a lot better already. In comparison to our daytime shot, we're now lighting it so that way we're getting kind of like this really pretty kind of like moonlight that's coming from the background. And again, we can control all of that through our different equator angle here. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with this today. Why is this not updating? Okay, that's pretty good. I like that. I like a little bit more of that edge light there. Okay, great. Now, we're going to do a couple other things. This one works great, but now we also want to have a little bit of fill light, as if there's some practical lights from he's just outside of like a store or something like that. Think about it. He's on the street corner here. So maybe we've got some moonlight coming from back there. Well, then we also might want to have a little bit more of a practical light coming from maybe this angle over here to give a little bit of fill light as well. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to duplicate our node setup here. We're just going to paste it over here. And then now let's go into our difference node. And we're just going to view this real quick. We're going to go over to our user options. And then we're just going to create a little bit more of a fill from the side over here. A little more frontal a little bit. So you can kind of see that it's coming from this angle on the right side. I'm going to drop in another invert node, and then we can just shuffle that again. Now, if we go back in, we're going to add a grade strip, because this is a little bit more of a color thing that we're going to be doing here. We might want a little bit of an exposure as well. So let's drop an exposure node in, and we're going to grade both of these here like so. So the first thing we're going to do is we want a little bit of color brightness pulled in as well. Not a lot. As you can see, we're lifting quite a bit of our guy here. But now when we go in and we change the gain value here, we can actually add in a little bit of warmth to our setup. Again, oh, I think that we don't want to invert it. Okay, beautiful. So now you can kind of see we're adding in a little bit of this grade here from the side. And this is kind of like a bit of a practical light that we're having come from off screen that is filling in a little bit of that light. So kind of going back, we're first darkening everything, and then we're kind of like creating like the dark shadow blueness that it would be at nighttime. And then we're going to lift a little bit of that exposure there. And if we wanted to, we can actually also take a grade strip in, and we can adjust the blueness. If we really want to like make that bluer, we can. I don't really want to, because we kind of want the shadows to be the same value as the highlights of the moon. Because if you really think about it, the moon is the ambient lighting. Like the moon is probably the brightest light of an outdoor street. And so in this particular situation, that moon is bouncing its light off of buildings and it's coming back onto our actor. So all of our shadows would be existing within inside of that same color space. So if we want to adjust that, we have to adjust this grade node here, because this grade node here is kind of adjusting that overall highlights that we want to have. And so then, of course, we've got this exposure that we're bringing in as well. And then we're kind of creating this additional practical light that is going to be existing within inside of like that one angle there. All right, fantastic. Now we actually can drop this in and see how this looks. And then we're going to need to add some more details to it as well. But we're already in a spot where we can drop it in and just see how it looks. So let's go ahead and add a merge node. And this merge node here, we're going to drop it over onto our scene. And already, that's working pretty well. I might want to desaturate the whole thing a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that. Just an overall desaturation here. And then, let's see, we also might want to bring everything down a little bit as well. Just kind of like in a general sense. Right now, everything is pretty bright. Let's use an exposure node for this. We're just going to bring everything down a little bit. Awesome. That looks a lot better. Okay, now he's feeling a little, as I would say, video gamey. And this is where our other assets or other extractions that we have are going to come in. So let's go ahead and just, add a dot here. And then we're going to want to create a little bit more detail on him. Right now, he's a little smooth. So we want to reintroduce this stuff. Now, this is where I was saying earlier is that the roughness that we've got from that extraction isn't quite exactly what I would like. But it's not the worst thing in the world either. So we're just going to use it for right now. Hopefully, as these extraction AI things enhance, they'll get better. But for right now, like there are a little bit of some limitations, I would say. I'm also going to, let's go ahead and add a little bit of an edge blur here. Just a little bit too sharp of a line. I think that fixes that quite a bit. Gonna go ahead and save. Okay, fantastic. I think, let's see. Okay, now let's take this roughness here. And what is roughness really? Roughness is kind of this operator that is supposed to make things more reflective or less reflective. In our particular case, we're not really using it for that. We're actually going to be using it to reintroduce texture to our objects, because one thing that the roughness operator does do is it does have more of that. So if I take the shadows, for instance, and then we can slide those down, or the midtones, we can slide those down, you can kind of see that there are some details inside of this roughness that are actually kind of useful for us. We want to take these values and kind of create more dynamicness between the highlights and then the contrast values of it in order for us to really maintain the thing we need. Now, using the contrast slider here isn't exactly the best way of doing that. Instead, adding a grade strip, we'll just disable it for right now so it doesn't affect us. We can use these two values here. Now, inside of a grade strip, it's kind of a cool way of remapping color values. And the way we're going to be using this is merging this back on top of our material and multiplying it. And multiplication means that if you multiply it by 1, that is not visible whatsoever. because it's multiplying it by 1. In math, if you multiply 2 by 1, what's the value? 2. If you multiply 20 by 1, it's 20. So on and so forth. 0.2 times 1 is 0.2. So what we want is everything to be 1 that isn't going to add any kind of detail to our object here. And already we're probably pretty close on this. So if we just merge this over top of our initial thing here, we're going to say on this merge operator, we're going to say, hey, we want you to multiply. Now, what does this do? This is actually going to darken our overall image because what it's doing is it's kind of like bringing everything down. But it's also going to be adding in kind of the details that we lost already in the past. Like the beard, it's going to give some more detail to the beard. Unfortunately, this roughness, as I said, doesn't have as much detail as I'd like it to have. You can kind of see that everything's pretty flat. Ideally, it would have more of the skin pores in there and things like that. But that's what we're going to be using the roughness for here. We're also going to be using the ambient occlusion. We're going to do the exact same thing. So we're just going to drop a merge node in, and same situation. We're going to take this merge node and we're going to say, hey, we want to multiply you. And again, all of these values here, you can see the RGB values are set to 1 pretty much everywhere, except for the areas in which we're adding those ambient occlusion shadows. And that's like this section here. If you want more contrast between those shadows, that's where you can add a grade node in. We already have the white point set to 1, and then we can set the black point to, let's say, this value here. Right now, this is only like a 0.36, but if we really want to make it more contrasty, we can go, hey, make it that a 0. And so what that's going to do is just cause more contrast between the values of 0.36 and 1, and then creates more of a range between those two. So that's a quick, easy way of doing that. And then when we go back over to our multiply, again, we can kind of see that happening here. We're adding in some of those details we were losing from the ambient occlusion that the albedo pass was kind of getting rid of. And I don't know if we really want this roughness thing, honestly, because it's really not giving us all that much information. But this occlusion is definitely going to work a lot better for us. Okay, fantastic. So now after a little bit of an edge blur, we drop that over top of our render. Okay. Now, our atmosphere looks like it's still in front of everything, and that's something I need to check. Looks like we are losing our alpha channel. So on this multiply, what we want to do is we're going to pass the alpha channel, also merge the alpha. I don't think I want to merge the alpha. What I want to do is keep the alpha from our B line here and not lose it when we go through our A, because right now that's exactly what's happening. So I think what we can do is we could say BRGBA, alpha, A channel, RGB. Let's do B or A. I can't remember. That's fine. I didn't want to do it this way. If someone has a better way, let me know. What we're going to do is we're just going to shuffle. This is the way I've previously done it, but I don't think this is the best way to do it. So we're going to say take from the A input, we're going to take the alpha from this and then just feed it through the B input. So that way when you're getting through this multiplication, you're still keeping the alpha essentially. And so that way when we go back to our setup here, we don't lose that alpha. It just basically keeps this guy in front of all the atmosphere. I don't know the best way to do that. I'm going to have to look into it. I think probably one of these options. I don't mess around with doing that all that often. Usually I just throw a shuffle node in there, but I don't think that's the best, most efficient way of doing it. Oh, well. Oh, well, as they say. I'm gonna probably drop another dot in there and then there we go. That's a little cleaner. Okay, fantastic. Let's go ahead and now we've got atmosphere behind him. Let's add a little bit of atmosphere in front of him. So we're going to go back to our handy dandy Action VFX website And we're going to find ourselves some new assets to work with here, guys. Probably something a little bit closer to the screen. We like, maybe not that. It's a little too heavy. Oh, that's cool. Let's do this one. Evaporating Fog 17. So I'm going to go ahead and download this to our assets here. How long are you going to take? Well, you're done. Okay. So we have our dude. Let's go ahead and move our entire comp down a little bit further to give ourselves some more space here. And we're going to go ahead and load in this evaporating fog that we now have. So we're going to say, hey, let's swap that to that. I like maybe this to be a little closer to the camera. And I do also, let's go to global real quick. Looks like we're going to want the offset to be a little higher. And let's go ahead and play that back now. Doesn't have to be a lot of movement. For the most part, we don't want it to be too visible. We just kind of want that textural feeling that it's going to have. Ooh, that's pretty good. We might actually want to slow it down, but I think for right now, let's test this to see how well it works. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and first of all, we're going to crop. And then we're going to add a keyer. And then now that's going to give us the alpha here. I'll probably make everything a little bit more visible. Yeah, that's great. Now, if we go ahead and merge this on top of everything, now we've got some atmosphere in front. Now, he's really standing in the fog there. We don't want that. We're going to want it to be a little more subtle, but we're off to a good start here, okay? So let's go ahead and bring that down a little bit. That's fantastic. Now, before all of our operators here, let's go ahead and change the gain here. Probably just overall kind of match that. I suppose we want this to be after the Luma key. And then let's change this here. And let's change this grade here to, let's first of all, we're going to disable it real quick. And then we're going to select this as like kind of like the whitest value. And then let's bring the mix back on there. There we go. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, set the white point to whatever this gray value is. And then we're saying, take that white point and then change the gain color of that to kind of like the color that we want it to be. So it's like a really easy way to map two values to each other. If you ever need to do color matching, I actually find this to be a very useful trick, is to set the white point to the white point of a CG element and then set the gain to the kind of like the plate's white value. And then you do that with the white point and then the black point. You set the black point to the CG black point, and then you set the lift to the plate's black point. That's a very easy way of just kind of like mapping everything together. And then now what we got is we got some like nice cool fog kind of like in here. And we can kind of control the mix here. And so that looks pretty good there. Great. Very subtle. Now we've got this kind of like nice effect. I will say moonlight kind of coming through the atmosphere would be kind of cool. I think that's like a nice little touch that we can do. So let's do that. Let's add a constant. Maybe not. Let's see. We've got our atmosphere here. We have our atmosphere here. Let's do it this way. Let's add a roto node. And sure. We'll blur the absolute crap out of that guy. And then, let's see. Let's add a grade node in, I think. And let's change the gain value of this. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's not bad. Let's blur this a little more, I think. Okay. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Now, we have this really cool shot that I think works pretty well. We'll play it back, but unfortunately, the director just called. The director goes, hey, you know, I realized that from a continuity perspective, the killer is supposed to be behind the fog over here. Can you add the killer into the background? And you're like, okay, gotcha. Well, now we got to go find a reference image of a killer. That's like, let's see. I don't even know. Freddy Krueger. Is that what we're doing here, guys? Freddy Krueger. Give me a silhouette of Freddy Krueger. And we're going to have to, because they didn't film it, they didn't film this asset, we're going to have to make this up. So we're going to go save image as Freddy Krueger WebP. Oh, goodness. It's a WebP file. WebP files don't play nice with Nuke. I'm just going to go in and screenshot this bad boy, I think. I'm going to screenshot him. Okay. And then we're going to save this. Freaking directors. They always miss the stuff. All right, let's put this into the assets folder. That looks pretty good so far, though. But the director's just like, we forgot to add the we forgot to add the dude. And you're like, okay, well, fantastic. Did you shoot any materials though? Did you shoot our guy against like a background or anything like that? No. I thought we were supposed to fix it in post. And then you go, that we are. So then you go in here and we add it in. That's how it works, guys. So we're going to go ahead and select everything here. We're just going to move it down. And you first argue, you go, hey, well, that's not within the scope of work that we initially talked about. And then they go, I don't care. And now you are stuck doing a shot that you weren't initially planning on. So let's go ahead and do it. So we've got ourselves a roto node, change web to PNG. I see it doesn't quite work that well, dude. Like I've tried that and it doesn't do that. Damn, those streams are feeling too realistic. Hey, it is true, and it's literally happened to me 5 times this week. So I'm just giving you guys how the feelings are, all right? You go, hey, did you guys have a VFX soup on set? Oh, no, we didn't think there was any visual effect shots. Oh, this is not a visual effect shot? I thought we talked about that. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and roto this guy out from this ugly pixelated thing, but at least he's going to be a silhouette in the background, so we're not too concerned about it, guys. Okay. Some lovely roto. Good old roto, guys. I guess it doesn't have to be that perfect. But I want it to, because you never know. I mean, this is the other thing. You're like, oh, it doesn't have to be that perfect. And then that later that the director comes back and goes, actually, now I'm thinking about it, seeing him in there, I think that we need him a little closer to the camera. What can you do about that? What can I do about that? Yes. Yes, we will do it. We will make your dreams come true. Every bit of it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Oh no. All right. And then the next note will be, can you make him walk? Can you make him walk? Can you make him move? He's got to be slowly creeping up on the main actor. And then you go, well, that wasn't in the initial request. And then they go, please. No, they don't say please. They go, all right, have it done tomorrow. I'm not venting, guys. I'm just letting you know this is how it works. Okay. All right. Close, close, close. I am just going to get through this. There needs to be a song called the Roto song. I'm just rotoing a single frame. And my single frame needs some roto work. I'm just rotoing inside my comp. Inside my comp. Inside my comp. As I slowly drift into insanity. Okay, there we go. Let's just do that guy. Let's do Woza. He does look like a nightmare from a dream, does he not? Okay, beautiful, beautiful, almost done. Now we got to get rid of this part here. That needs to be a minus, I think. Why not key it? Because I literally didn't think about that. Okay, Nickies. God damn it. Okay, you're right. I don't know why I didn't think about that. Jeez. You could have said that 5 minutes ago. Oh my gosh. Not to mention, it does look kind of terrible, but it's okay. We're going to put up with it. Nickies. Freaking waits till I was basically done to tell me that there was a better way to do this. Okay, there we go. Now we got our guy. Now we got our guy. Better. There we go. All right, fantastic. So we've got our dude, and I think the one thing I'm a little concerned about, yep, is that. Let's go ahead and crop this. I knew my screenshot was a little off too. Let's do that. It's Nikki's fault. It is 100%. Okay, we're going to reformat it as well, but there we go. We've got our dude, and our dude is just there. Let's see, the RGB, that's the mask, This is the thing. This is that. That's that. Oh, I see. Now we need to invert this. Although we could use stencil as well. Doesn't really matter. And then I don't know, because I'm lazy. Let's go ahead and also erode. So we're going to erode it. Beautiful. Now we're going to pre-malt. You don't deserve as much work as you're getting. Edge blur? No. Well, we will in a moment, but I'm not going to pre-malt it. We will in a moment. He's in the background, so I'm probably going to ZD focus him, and then you're not going to really need it at all. So let's go ahead and add a merge in here, and we're going to use a transform node. Okay, so now we're going to scale him down, I think, and then we're going to stick him behind this. And yeah, that should work. So now we've got our guy here. Let's use a merge with the B input plugged into it, and then this plugged into our car roto. And then we're going to say, hey, stencil, please. And he goes, yes, sir. And then we're going to grab this guy and then put him there. Fantastic. Now, let's see. Let's use an exposure node now. And let's just drop him down to like basically nothing. And then we're going to use a grade node here to change the gain value, or what I prefer actually is probably changing the white point to be a little less red. Just to match that not so green. Just to match the bluish vibe that we want. Okay, fantastic. Now, we need him kind of situated behind the atmosphere. Right now he's in front of everything. So this layer right here, we'll just delete. This is the atmosphere that we have. So let's move our dude to probably over here, just for easier access. And then for this A input, let's just plug that in like so with the hide the input. Let's go ahead and add a dot in with a merge associated with it. Plug that in behind our smoke layer that we have. We probably also want to stencil out certain portions of our guy here, because I mean the ground is still kind of visible, and our keyer didn't take it out. So let's go ahead and add a merge node with a roto associated with it. And we are going to just kind of delete that. Delete that. Okay. Again, we don't need to really blur anything because we'll be blurring the overall image here in a moment. So this now is going to be stenciled. So we're going to do that. So now we've got our guy here. Okay, fantastic. Now let's go ahead and after this whole thing, we're going to ZD focus him. Probably actually before this stencil, because this is the car and we don't want to change the outline of the car at all. So now if we have that in there, that should match everything a little better. So realistically, that defocus, that blur, it's actually pretty close already. I don't think we need to do too much more touch-ups, honestly, on it. I do like swapping that to bladed. That usually works pretty well. And then now when we add the atmosphere in, we've got our guy here. Okay, fantastic. Let's, for right now, actually, no, I don't want to do it that way. Let's, I kind of do want to hand paint this in. Yeah, let's hand paint it in. We're going to hand paint the shadows. There's a couple ways you could not do the hand painted shadow effect. We could do it by literally turning him sideways, blurring it, and all sorts of jazz. But I think in this particular situation, we're not going to have him move. And if we do, we're going to want to have this a little better. So, okay, let's do it this way. You usually end up kicking yourself in the butt by doing things this way. But I just need these contact shadows in here. You don't really need long shadows. He doesn't need long shadows. He needs kind of just like contact shadows of him standing on the ground. So we're going to just take that whole frames, and we can always like fade these out. I really like doing it this method because you can make them layers and then you can fade in the opacity of them. So that way if he's walking, you can actually have them kind of like appear that way. All right. So now we've got ourselves some atmosphere in front of everything here. And then he's kind of in the background. I do think he's a little too front lit and makes him a little too visible, and he's too saturated. So let's change the saturation here. And then let's also go in and we're going to add a grade node at this very top here, and just want to kind of like remove this light from his face. So if we can, we want to make him a little more silhouetted just on the face portion. We don't want to see his face, you know? Let's just pre-mult that. Let me change that to 50, I think. If we blur that while making this a little larger, I think it's going to get us closer to what we want. Okay, so now if we go back after all of our work is done, oh, right, this has to happen. My bad. This has to happen after we apply the mask on all that. Which makes sense. Using a Luma key and you're darkening it, you're not going to see it. Okay, so now we're going to run into a problem where we're not seeing his face. Can't really see his face, and it's against a black background. So from a cinematography perspective, you're going to get yelled at. That's not fun. So let's do some fancy shancies in here, okay? So what we want to do is we probably want to stencil out this mask at a specific area. So let's use another roto node here and plug that in. We're going to pre-mult this, I think, RGB8. And then we go back in. And we're going to kind of want to keep this edge light. We're going to fake an edge light on our dude. Looks good to me. And then probably some eye lights as well. And then a little bit of a nose. Beautiful. Now if we go ahead and blur this a touch, we go back to our initial image here. We're going to get a little more visible there. There we go. So now his face is a little more shadowed. Okay. Next up, I think there's a concern that he's facing the same direction as the guy with the cell phone. So we're going to not have that happen. Now the lighting doesn't quite match. Let's see how well all that fits together. Okay. A little creepier. Next up is, let's see. We're going to make magic happen, guys. It's what we do. It's what we do. Probably not after the transform. Let's do this before all this. There we go. Okay, so throughout this shot, I need this to be the final keyframe, I think. And then we're going to start the shot out here-ish. We're going to kind of like grab this section here, and then he's crouching. Okay, so he's crouching. And this section here, we're just going to rotate him, and then that way it looks like he's standing up, okay? I don't know if this is going to work. We're going to find out if this worked. I don't think it did, or it will. But we're going to hope it did, because then we'll have to erase his previous body that was there. See how well that plays. It's like he's coming up from behind the car. Let's go back into the grid warp now, and then we're just going to adjust this. We're going to have to roto out his body from behind that, but we'll just see if this kind of like 2D. Yeah, he's like doing a snaky. That's not good. That is not good. Well, actually, it's not terrible either, guys. All right, so we're making moves. We're making moves. Whoops. Let's go back over here to the dope sheet. Oh, snap. There we go. Oh, I haven't saved it all. Oh, wait, here we go. Save. It's a weird one. Okay, let's start from there. And then let's go all the way back. All right. That works for me, actually. I'm not going to lie. That actually works pretty good. Okay. Okay. So now we did this number, and this created some weirdness that's going on. I do wonder if there's a way to... I've not messed around too much with the options here. So... There we go, on black. That's what it's got to be. I don't usually mess around with grid warp all that much. I usually use spline warp. Okay, let's play that back, see how that is. How does that look, guys? That's a little weird. But let's see how it plays in the dark. I'm gonna go all the way to the bottom here. I might add atmosphere behind him as well, just to silhouette him a little bit more. I think that's gonna be a trick. Just to make it a little bit more outlined. He still moves kind of like he jumps into like, I think it's the second keyframe. That's the, well, this keyframe maybe needs to get moved before the first one, so that way he's always moving. Maybe that's part of it. And then I think we need to go back to our favorite website and find some more atmosphere. So let's do that. That's cool. Oh, that's even cooler. So we're going to grab this guy. Let's download him. And we'll drop that atmosphere in. And then once we have this, that'll really make him silhouetted against the background that we have. Here we go. Okay. So this all goes before this guy here. So let's move. I need the feet to still be painted. And what's the one that I just got? And we'll change this to that. Just merge that over top. Let's scale you down. Let's move you over. And then I think here we go here. And then that way it gets rid of most of the background. That works for the most part. Might want to also add some roto edges to it. And let's see, we're going to fade the edges here, so we'll do that. Just add a blur node in and then just feather that out, guys. Like that should work. And then we'll make that a mask. So now we have just our not going all the way to the edges. I might want this to be a little thinner, so let's there we go. That should work. Now we have our Freddy Krueger here, and that color doesn't quite work for us, but we can fix all of that now. Okay, so let's add in a grade node, and let's see, we'll set the white point here to this. And then let's see, let's go here again, and then we're going to set the gain to, I don't know, that. Or even that. I like how dark that is. That's pretty good. So now, if we go ahead and enable that, it's going to be a very small amount of smoke, but you can see it just creates a little bit more of a silhouette for our guy. And if we Move that up and over. And there we go. We're just going to want to do a few things. So we're going to want to stencil out the car again. So let's go ahead and do that. Stencil out our car. Wait, that is our car, right? Yep. Still putting it over top of our... Oh, it is not. Okay, I was like... I swear it's still putting it over top of the car. Okay, so then we've got that there. And then we've got our Freddy Krueger character here. And then we've got the rest of the atmosphere in front of Freddy Krueger, which we can lessen that atmosphere a little bit more now. And then we've got the rest of our dude kind of set up here. So let's go ahead and look at that. And then now let's go and play everything back. And let's also not O-flow, time offset this by 999 frames to make sure it starts at 1,000. Now the only thing is because we grid warped this, the lighting kind of stays constant on our guy. I also might want to, now that we have, not that guy, we have this, we can silhouette him a little bit more. Maybe not fully. I feel like that's pretty good there. Because now that we could definitely see him, it's better that he's silhouetted. Let's see, what do you guys think? I think because his foot doesn't move, it looks like he's actually growing, which I mean he is, but it looks like he's growing because the foot's not moving. So I wonder if we grid warp that in a way, if that could help fix some of our problems. So we're gonna try that because it never hurts to try. Let's see, we want that to be the front of his foot, and then just trying to like it's gotta be quicker. Right here. And then here. Oh goodness. Yeah. Open up Pandora's door. Okay, let's see how that looks. Probably just breaking everything slowly but surely here, but let's see that how you would expect the red lights tint the haze a bit more. Huh. You're kind of right, actually. That's a fair observation, especially for the haze that's a little closer. Let's do that. Let's throw a gain in here, or not a multiply. A gain in here that's a little redder. Okay. And then let's use this mask here to kind of do this, I think. Then blur that a little more. And then we take this and we bring that down a little bit. Bring that a little more yellowy orange. Very subtle, but like definitely a good call. See how he stands up now. We're going to run into some problems with this, I think, if we try to animate him too much using grid warps. It's actually not bad. Like, I think I just need to fix the shadows on the ground, and then we're in business. Yeah. Yeah, we need to fix that, and then I think we're in business, guys. There's another thing also that I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but there's like this weird lighting thing that's happening on his chest here that it's like the sunlight was coming through the tree, and it's creating like this weird kind of like shadowy shadowness on his body. That's super strange. So we could fix that. Yeah, let's fix that next, and then we'll call it a shot. So probably gonna do that over here on this guy. This is where the majority of our dude is coming from, is through this piece, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about on his chest here. The light values are kind of adjusting on his and his torso here, and we need to remove that. Strong deflicker or XD noise maybe. Yeah, but it's like moving weird. It's not flickering as much it is like a light, it's like a gobo effect on his chest. I was gonna brute force it with a vector distort, I think. Because if you do smart vectors, and then we set the value to a little bit higher of a value, we're going to just write these vectors. We can render this out to a pre-render folder. Call it smart vector. Smart vector dot 1234 dot exr. And we'll go ahead and create that. Go ahead and render that out. whoops, you guys aren't seeing what I'm doing here really, but it's the albedo pass with a smart vector plugged into it, and then just rendering out the EXRs of that in order for us to essentially project onto his t-shirt a clean t-shirt. That's essentially what we're trying to do here. I think should work. Should work. Let's just finish rendering this out. And then if we freeze frame this one frame, and then we roto the section of the t-shirt, and then you use smart vectors to move it, the shirt will then move with him, and you'll have a clean version of his t-shirt. That's the theory that I have anyways. So you can actually clean it up on this frame too if you want to remove it completely, though, because otherwise it'll look like his shirt has a design on it. That's the only concern that we're going to run into, is that I don't think, can you see that in a little bit? You see the light that's kind of on the shirt? It moves when he moves. It's like somewhat visible there. Wow, that's actually a problem, kind of. It's not really a problem, it's just something that we need to consider. It's visible there, it might be visible here. No, I don't think it would be visible on the occlusion. So it's only visible on our normal pass. Which, here's what we're going to have to do. I think, just add a dot. We're going to make changes to the normal as well as our albedo here. So what I did was I just used smart vectors on his t-shirt here. And hopefully that means that we can just track something on. I think that that's what that means. So what we'll do is we'll do a vector distort and plug that into this. Let's oh, well, no, we don't need the vector distort plugged into it. Whoops, I'm sorry. We need this plugged into our right node here. This will be our smart vectors. And then our t-shirt that we want to have, let's go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of room here. Let's use a frame hold. I think we're on a good frame for this. So we use a frame hold. And if we wanted to, we could do our paint work. So this is where it might be smart for us to use clone stamp instead of like a painting. And the reason why is because everything I do here, I'm going to copy paste to our normals. And I'd like it just to work rather than having to fix things. So let's see. Let's change this to 0.1 and then I think that should work. What we're doing is we're kind of diffusing that whole section there. Even blurring it can work. Okay. Now, by taking this, it's on a frame hold. Let's go ahead and just I'm going to add a roto in, and then we're going to select the portion of the t-shirt that we want, which is just like this portion of the t-shirt here. And this is like one of those things where, you know, I feel like most clients might not notice it, depending on like if you're working for large studio pictures. I feel like a lot of indie filmmakers that I've worked with won't even pick up on stuff like this, but it might come up in QC later. So it's always worth it to fix these things. So now if you take this as the source and we're going to set this as our current frame, essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, use the vector distort now from frame 1021 all the way forward. And hopefully, if we play this back, the t-shirt should move and warp as the rest of the body did. But now it's not going to have that light kind of going across the chest here. Probably could have spent more time cleaning it up, but we'll see how much that is going to hurt us in the end of the day. Okay, we're having a little bit of tearing happening here. Now, if we merge this over top of our original image, how visible is any of that crap? It is pretty well. Let's see, let's go to vector distort. Turn blur size all the way up. I'm not too concerned about it, and I'll tell you why. Because we already have a key of when that stuff is supposed to be here. What we want is just use the B, I think. Can we... We'll do mask. There we go. Do auto alpha. So that way it doesn't lighten it. Why is this so much lighter? All right, there we go. Okay, so now that is going to clean out his shirt now. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do the exact same thing to the normals now. So, but luckily this is pretty copy pastable. What we do need to do is make sure we use the exact same smart vectors, because those smart vectors will be the same then for both. But yeah, so all we have to do is grab this stuff, paste it here, grab this, paste it, whoops, grab this, paste it onto the normals that we have there, copy this, paste that with the B input plugged into that, the A input plugged into that, and then let's see, our roto paint will just be plugged directly into our normals as well, and then the smart vectors are going to be coming from that right node location. Now if we go back over here, we should see that our normals have the paint work happening on them. That's good. I think this is what we want. Oh, and then auto alpha. Probably disable the grade. There we go. Boom. Okay, so now our normals are cleaned up as well as our albedo pass. And then this is very messy. Let's see, let's clean this up a little bit here. We're just going to do a little bit of bookkeeping. That's going to go there. Let's have the A input like so. And then should be good. I'm going to have that cleaned up like that. We're using the same vector distort for both, essentially. And then that's good. Then that's using the A for that. As long as it passes the sniff test there. Okay, beautiful, guys. So that gets comp back in front of everything, and a little bit of atmosphere in front of him. We'll go ahead and save everything now. Awesome. Okay, so I think that's good. Let's go ahead and play back everything to see how it looks. But I think that's it for today, guys. This is just a relighting using Nuke tutorial. You know, there are gizmos that do the relighting thing, though I'll be honest, every time I need one, it ends up not working. So, Jared Polin. Who's Jared Polin? Jared Polin. I'm Googling it. He's a photographer. Okay. A famous enough photographer where he has a Google like box. Okay. You know, I'm not hating it, guys. I'm not. I'm not. It's not a full dislike on this one. I don't know why. I'm gonna move me over. All right, there's the shot, everybody. That's cool. The atmosphere could move a little more back there. He likes to sniff cameras on his channel. Oh, does he? Oh, because I said, does it pass the sniff test? Oh, man. It's a weird fetish to smell cameras. I don't know. I smell Nuke comps. Oh, the sniff test. That's hilarious. Well, there you guys go. I think that it's it. I think the only thing I'm going to do, and I don't want to cash this out anymore, but I'm going to probably throw a regrain on here from Furnace just to get like some nice night regrain in there. I am a fan of grain. Like, it's funny. I think as a filmmaker, I'm going to be very much a grain guy. Let's go here real quick. Probably not that much grain. Let's change the grain size as well. Something more like... That's pretty good. I like that. And then let's use a keyer. To take the highlights here. Want a little less grain in the highlights personally. So I don't know with the furnace node if I can automatically do that, but what I want to do is maybe do this. Is that gonna work? So that puts it pretty much everywhere except for on the highlights. Yep. Beautiful. And then that gives us grain. I don't know. Is there a better way to do that, guys, with the grain node? I feel like there has to be. But that way we're only putting grain in the shadows. And in this shot, it's not super prevalent. because the everything is so dark anyways, but it does add a little bit of more dynamicness to it. It's a little bit of dynamicness to it. Probably should have made it we should probably actually change this to regrain after you solidify the alpha. I feel like that's probably the right order of operations, is to solidify the alpha, then add grain to the entirety of the image. Because what if it only adds grain to the thing that it thinks is the alpha part of the image, in which case it's not adding grain to other portions of the shot that maybe has like a mask carrying through. That is something to think about. Something to think about. Yeah, I like this. I think this turned out really well, guys. So this is the this is our first render for Spooktober. I don't even know if that's the name we're going with, but I'm gonna try to do some kind of like spooky film concept VFX shots for the next month. So we're taking a break from our video game assets that we're doing, and we're spending time inside of Nuke and maybe inside of Blender doing some cool renders. So if you guys have renders that you would like to see or VFX shots that you'd like to see, now is the time to let me know. Put them in the comments below, and I'll try to get to it. Today's render was just a quick VFX shot of a day for night type shot, but then, you know, the director called and said he wanted Freddy Krueger in the background. So it is what it is. But with that being said, if you guys would like these project files, of course, you guys know where to get them. They're on the Patreon. Link to that is in the description. I will post this video, I think, over on the Discords as well. This was a fun one. I mean, it's kind of fun, you know, like Freddy Krueger kind of like growing in the background. He doesn't really grow. Actually, it kind of works. I feel like it kind of works. You know, it works. We're going to say it works. And even if he's growing, it's Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger does all sorts of weird things. So, you know, we got a little bit of leeway there. But as far as the relight goes, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. One of the things that I really can't wait is for like the AI texture mapping thing to work a little bit better, to give us some more detail inside of like pores and like different like things like that. I think that'll be really cool. But for what we got, this worked out really well. His shirt got pretty clean. I like that too. We removed the issues that we had there. Actually reintroduced a different issue, but it's not as bad and noticeable. It's okay. I feel like there has to be some way to use high frequency extraction in the original shot. Yeah, you know what? Extraction. Yeah, that's actually probably not a bad idea. It's something I do on my de-aging shots that I do, is I take the kind of like the original detail, do a high frequency pass on it, and then I multiply that back on. That might be a good way, because like unfortunately it just adds like a lot of smoothness to the skin when you do this albedo kind of method, because it's regenerating it. And then of course AI has its limitations as far as like the size of it. And so when it regenerates the albedo pass, it kind of like screws up on that. So I don't know. It's something that will definitely get better as the new models come out and things like that. But it's just a test of if you will. But there you guys go. Thank you guys so much for watching today's live stream. If you guys aren't already, hit the subscribe button below. Share it with a friend or two if you've got any friends that would like to watch these live streams. You know, we're still trying to grow the channel. We're actually really close to 5,000 subscribers. We're like insanely close. I think we're well, I don't know if you'd say insanely close, but we're like, what is that, 30 away? Is that how far away we are? What is this? Oh, is it 300? I don't even know anymore. What is math? We are a distance of subscribers away. So we are hitting it close-ish. We're at like 4.86 thousand subscribers, and my brain can't work right now. What does that mean? Oh, I guess we have to hit, we have 314 subscribers left. So, we've got, I guess, a little bit of a ways. But if you guys have any friends that you want to watch this YouTube channel, then do that. Anyways, this kicks off Spooktober. So thanks for watching, guys. You guys have a great rest of your week. I will chat with you guys soon. I'm going to go take a nap or something because I'm tired. And, I've been working crazy hours. So I'll see you next week. You guys have a good one. I appreciate you guys. And we'll chat soon. Bye-bye.